What's up, guys? So I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I wanted to start sharing some of my thoughts on those as I come across interesting things or think I can provide a unique perspective on something. One thing that I've seen come up on a lot of podcasts recently is I like to listen to a lot of podcasts that have something to do with where are things going in the future, AI, technology, that type of thing. And something that a lot of podcasts talk about is AI's achievements in playing games against humans, whether that's you know uh, Go or chess or League of Legends or whatever the game is. And I feel like every time that conversation is had, people focus on things that maybe are a little bit misleading or just change people's perception of it and lean it towards the more dramatic. For example, people, when they talk about AlphaZero playing Stockfish and it training itself in 4 hours, this is some sort of mystery. Like, how did it do this? This is incredible. You can imagine that a human, even if they were a savant, being that good at chess in that amount of time. But it's almost like we fall prey to the marketing of Google, I think, in that, and that of course the press releases that it played for 4 hours, not the number of games it played, which if you just kind of think about it, that's probably much more important. So I just Googled here, how many games did AlphaZero play? And it says, it trained itself to play chess over 44 million games. So that puts in perspective the amount of data and the amount of iterations that it gets to have in playing this game. If you think about it, a human being has no chance of ever playing this many games in a lifetime. Even if you assumed somebody could play for 80 years, which most people start early, and they don't typically play till they're 80. But let's just assume, for the sake of argument, somebody played for 80 years and they played 5 games every single day. That's only like 150,000 games over the course of their lifespan. And they definitely will not peak when they hit 150,000 games. Their best chess days will be somewhere between their experience and their hardware still being good, right? Because as you get older, your brain ceases to function as well as it used to when it was young. So that's just there's just a constraint that humans have in terms of the amount of iteration we can do due to bandwidth on so many of these types of things. It's not surprising to me that a computer is much better at us than at chess than us, given where we've gone with AI. And neural networks are still fascinating. I still think it's incredible that neural nets can do this. But it's interesting to put in perspective the way these things are learning, right? The type of learning that they're doing in a similar way to maybe it's somewhat analogous to computers of the past playing chess against humans. The reason they were competitive was they could just simply do so much more computation. They weren't as good at picking out the lines in chess that might be important. AlphaZero is still doing enormous amounts of computation. It's just that it is able to maybe more so preload that in versus conventional chess playing engines. But there's still a similar thing going on between the computers and humans, and that is just that humans don't have the ability to play this many games or do this many calculations in this amount of time. It's actually, in some ways you could argue it's still incredible that human beings even have the rating that they do have as compared with engines at this point. I think that's an interesting take on it, and it just helps demystify it a little bit. It's not that it's not amazing what AlphaZero did, but I think we tend to maybe fall into the mysterious thing like, oh, we've basically already created a super intelligence that, like, if it got out, it would wreak havoc on us or something like that. I think that there's a difference in kind between these intelligence. That being said, it's also interesting to note that the way in which a neural network works and the way our brain works does seem to have some very interesting similarities. I'm going to post an article in the description down below. It's a great article to check out if you just want to know the basics and be able to read it without getting into too much detail, but to basically understand the broad strokes of AI and neural networks. The idea behind neural networks has actually been around for quite some time, but it's only in recent times that technology has improved such that they became feasible, and now they're actually very widely used. I think a lot of people don't realize that AlphaZero gets all the attention for its accomplishments in beating us at games and things like that, but neural nets have made their way into a lot of areas of our life. I work for a technology company. I was at a conference. One of our partners uses AI in their software. And I was talking with him about it, and he said at one point that an AI is like a child, and I was instantly thinking of the article that I read. It's like, yeah, it does seem to learn the same way. It's a lot of trial and error, and it calibrates over time. But he went a different direction with the analogy. He said you have to feed it, and that goes to the amount of data that it's going to have to receive in order to improve is actually the challenging part about making it learn. So I thought that was kind of an interesting take on that as well, and that's something where with chess, the amount of data seems to be nearly infinite. It can just play itself as much as it wants, but for other more bounded learning tasks, it might have, that it might be difficult to get that data. I think we're seeing that right now with self-driving cars to some extent. In some sense, that amount of data is much more difficult to acquire, and then it's unclear whether the important elements of the data are really calibrating the AI as it should. I imagine that over time, with enough data, like any mistakes will just get lost in the improvement. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking beyond what I know now, but this was just something that occurred to me when I'm listening to people talk about AI, and they're marveling at it only took it 4 hours. I think that Google has done a great job of making that the focus, not the 44 million games that AlphaZero was able to play. Another thing that's interesting that I wanted to look up, how much energy did AlphaZero use? Yeah, let's go to Google. Will probably do a better job of actually finding something right away. All right. Not this. AlphaZero play. No. Well, this is actually kind of interesting. This is saying 3 challenging games. Chess is able to be the version of AlphaGo. Yeah, so this would have been after AlphaGo had already done its training. So, it didn't play 3 games to learn. That's an important distinction. I think this version played it. Yeah, and that was the fact that this started from just the basic rules of the game, which again is an impressive accomplishment. I wanted to type in how much energy. Yeah, AlphaGo use more power than 3,000 humans. Mind energy consumption. Yeah, I mean, you'll probably get the idea here. Just like the human brain has a bandwidth problem as compared to AI, and we can't simply, plug in more TPUs in order to increase our compute power. So AI is, I think the difference between humans and computers is, at base level, it's somewhat similar to what it has always been. Computers could simply do more computation than us in playing chess. We were arguably better at noticing what was relevant to compute, which made us competitive for as long as we were. But it was only a matter of time before the computation went out there, because you can simply keep increasing the computing power, and we cannot just keep increasing our intelligence or skill at chess. We're much more bounded than the machines that we're creating, that we're playing against. I think that maybe I hope that this just gives people a different perspective on this. I think it's still incredible what's going on, and I think that, in some sense, it's a very small distinction to make between whether, hey, this AI was like super mysteriously good at chess in only 4 hours. It's still incredible what it did. I mean, but it's not incredible when you realize it's not as mysterious when you realize how many games it played against itself in order to learn and to understand the game. It's essentially more of a situation of saying, like, of course you can lift more weight than me, you're stronger. I think it's that sort of thing. The AI is just simply going to be better at something like this, where there's no bound to the amount of power that it can bring to bear on that task at hand. So anyway, that was just something that occurred to me, and something I might be doing a little bit more in the future, is as I have thoughts like this that I think maybe provide a unique perspective, or just I find interesting about the podcasts I've been listening to, I'll post them and see what you guys think. Thanks for watching. Bye.